Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Love Rinkside by G.K. Brady. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Mascots on Parade. Drew Foster sank into the shadows of his host's deck, blinking falling snowflakes from his lashes. The night sky was churning with them, but he preferred the bad weather outside to being inside making small talk and pretending to be as happy as the other guests while bearing the brunt of his ludicrous Halloween costume. He wasn't that good of an actor. And what had possessed him to wear the ridiculous getup in the first place? He couldn't blame it on alcohol or drugs because he hadn't been under the influence of anything except extremely poor judgment, something he normally didn't indulge in, when he declared his intention to wear it to his mass murderer of a brother-in-law. No backing out after flapping his gums in the front of the man-killer. Of course, if he'd acted more like Man-Killer and less like boring, predictable Drew, he might have owned the costume and rocked it as he walked into the party instead of slinking off to the deck. His current location yielded one consolation: the barrel 6 feet away from him that held endless iced long necks. He had all he needed to party alone for the requisite polite period. Now, if only the deck had a staircase that would allow him an escape before his brother-in-law noticed he was gone. Peeling up the banana yellow screen hiding his face, he tipped back the bottle he'd clutched like his favorite hockey stick and downed half the flavorless beer it contained. Flavorless because his taste buds, like his other senses, had been hijacked after learning he might not land the sweetheart of a consulting gig he'd been working on for months. No, scratch that. Frustration was a civilized way of describing the anger bubbling inside him. Like nice guys everywhere, he was in last place, and it pissed him the hell off. It was time he got over being courteous to people like the scumbag trying to steal the opportunity and the jackasses who were aiding and abetting. Great. Between the costume and his possibly imploding business, he was a double loser. He guzzled the ice-cold brew until a mere inch remained and let loose a sigh that billowed, cloud-like, in the frigid air. If luck was on his side, and that wish was a stretch considering Luck didn't even like being in the same room with him lately, the night's inkiness would swallow him whole and spit him out in his own house. In the sanctity that was home, he could shuck his ridiculous get-up and stew in his juices of discontentment while getting properly hammered with a bottle of tequila. The French door leading from the celebration inside the huge-ass mansion opened, and raucous laughter rolled out of its confines, disrupting his self-pity party. Unfurling the opaque mask, he tucked it back into place to hide his identity per his host's strict instructions. He hauled in a breath and held it, praying a guest had simply stuck their head out to sniff the snow before returning to the shindig. The hysterics from inside were cut off as the door slammed shut, and his hopes were dashed when the deck boards creaked under the weight of shuffling footsteps. He folded himself deeper into the shadows, even as the futility of hiding his 6'3" frame and the costume that extended it to 7 feet smacked him in the head. The footsteps stopped, and a voice squeaked in the stillness. Who's there? Next came a gasp. Oh my God, what are you? Just kill me now. Drew straightened his shoulders and emerged. Let's just get it over with. He stopped short as the sight in front of him came into full view under the deck's floodlights. He blinked several times, but the sight didn't waver. What the hell are you? He blurted out. Even his analytical brain couldn't make sense of what his eyes reported. Human fists perched themselves on dusky blue saddlebags that presumably draped human hips. I am a mascot, the unmistakably feminine voice sniffed with indignation. Yeah, well, aren't we all? The price of admission to this exclusive party he hadn't wanted to attend had been to dress up in a sports mascot costume that masked one's face until the big reveal late into the evening. A grand prize would be awarded for the best costume as long as the winner had kept his or her identity hidden behind said mask throughout the duration. The prize wasn't too shabby. A weekend stay at the host's mountain retreat, complete with gourmet chef and in-house massages. He narrowed his eyes, not that she could see them. So exactly what mascot are you? You look like a giant Is that a case of Corona you're guarding over there? She pointed to the dark corner where his very own stash awaited consumption and, without waiting for his answer, hefted her hulking self toward the barrel of beer. She stumbled, and instinct had him shooting out his hand to steady her. His fingers closed around her upper arm, which was deceptively lean. Not skinny, but way thinner than the squishy costume made it appear. He could practically touch his fingertip to his thumb. Damn it, she blasted. I can't see in this stupid thing. Wrenching herself from his grip, she nearly continued her tumble, but recovered and straightened herself with as much dignity as one could when dressed like a monstrous... No, he was seeing this costume all wrong. Had to be. There was no such mascot. Wordlessly, he set his own bottle aside, plucked 2 cold ones from the barrel, and twisted off their caps. He handed her one. You look like you could use this. She grunted a thanks and slid the end of the bottle into a tiny gap in her mask that revealed generous pink lips. The baser part of his mind recorded and appreciated how those full lips closed around that bottle, telegraphing possibilities to the region below his belt. 16 years ago, when his 15-year-old self had been a seething testosterone factory, those 2 parts of him had established a direct line of communication that bypassed his frontal lobes. As a mature 31-year-old man, he had wrestled the 2 delinquents into running these messages through the proper channels. In other words, his logical brain. Usually. Apparently, they had just shot past his carefully constructed decision tree, sniggering at the image of smooth skin over hollowed cheeks and a moist red mouth sucking on a long neck. With an inner curse, he shook the image free while admonishing his neglected libido's stellar timing. Said libido shouted back that it was Drew's fault. He'd been between girlfriends way too long. One huge, and maybe the only, downside to being single. His neglected condition probably explained why he thought the woman was dressed as a man-sized, flesh-colored penis, complete with appropriately placed veinage and saddlebags on her hips, doubling as huge blue balls. What the fuck? He couldn't hold back any longer. Are you dressed as a dick? What if I am? She huffed. Afraid of the competition? Meaning? Meaning there might be 2 dicks on this deck. She dipped the grotesque crown toward him with a muffled laugh. Bite me, banana. Amusement coiled in Drew's belly, even as he flinched, alarmed the tip might actually touch him, which was ridiculous. It was only a costume. A very strange costume, but made of fabric, not human flesh. He burst out in unbridled laughter. Oh my God, and I thought I had the most embarrassing costume. What happened? Bad case of penis envy? You're a runway prop from the set of A Clockwork Orange, or did you lose a bet? Shut up, the giant dick growled, taking another pull from her bottle. Who held a gun to your head? And can I watch you extract your pound of flesh, or make that several pounds? She returned her free hand to her blue testicle hip. What are you, anyway? A neon yellow tube person with antenna? I guess that would make you the alien version? Hey, I'm a real mascot. He lifted his chin several inches, though the effect was entirely lost in the stifling costume. I'm a real mascot, too. Since when is a giant dick a mascot? Since 2001. Scrody is the Rhode Island School of Design's hockey team mascot, and the school happens to be my alma mater. He could have sworn her chin rose an inch or 2. Scrody? He guffawed. You have got to be fucking kidding. I mean, you have got to be kidding me. Wait, why was he worried about hurling an F-bomb when this woman obviously had no filter herself? Probably because no matter whether he was 3 or 31, his mother's voice would forever tisk in his head for using foul language. And he hated to do anything that might upset her. She had programmed his sister and him well, even if that programming lapsed when they weren't within earshot of her. I am not kidding, Scrody snorted. He's a real mascot with real teams. The hockey team is called the Nats, and the school's basketball squad is named the Balls. Look it up. He nearly dropped his beer. The Nats mascot twirled a pointer finger at him. While we're on the subject of real mascots, the invite specified a legit mascot in order to get in, not some last-minute invention put together with bolts of fabric languishing in Hobby Lobby's bargain bin. How did you sneak past the bouncers in that thing? She took another swig of her beer, and his eyes were yanked to those intriguing pink lips of hers. No, more of a deep rose color, and so full they could have been swollen by a bee sting. There was something sexy as hell about talking to a woman where the only part you could see was her luscious, borderline dirty mouth. Bouncers? What bouncers? Hello, the contingent of huge hockey players inside. Have you ever heard of TJ Shanstorm, the Blizzard Enforcer? He's as big as a bus and as solid as one, too. They may not be paid bouncers, but if anyone doesn't toe the center line, you can bet your sweet ass those guys will take care of the troublemaker. She air quoted the last 5 words. Post haste. Huh. Maybe Drew had slid past the bouncers because the bus-sized one was married to his sister, Natalie. TJ also happened to be the mass-murdering brother-in-law who had made Drew follow through on the costume with one antagonizing dip of his dark man-killer brow. Drew cleared his parched throat. Well, Scrody, I'm legit. Ever heard of Sammy, UCSC's mascot? UCSC? University of California, Santa Cruz. He inched up his own mask, ready to polish off his remaining beer when she let out a happy squeal. You're the banana slug! Oh my God, that's priceless! He paused mid-tilt. It is? I've always wanted to meet Sammy. You must have gone to school there. Because that's the only reason I'd be caught dead dressed up like this. At least you're not a giant dick, she muttered. Scratch that. I don't know you well enough to know for sure, although I'm seeing hints of it. Though he couldn't see her face, he definitely picked up the smirk in her tone. I've been accused once or twice and was probably guilty. He finished his beer and picked up the fresh bottle. As for this mascot getup, I never attended the school. The only reason I'm wearing it is because I lost a bet to my brother-in-law, and I pay my debts. And I have a strong survival instinct. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I detected a less than enthusiastic note just then about your costume choice. Are you dissatisfied being a big dick? The way I see it, you're a shoo-in for first prize. She threw back more of the beer. Not nearly as satisfied as I thought I'd be. It sounded like such a good idea in my head, but between not being able to fit in my car and the howls I got when I walked in, well, let's just say I'm having second thoughts about revealing my true identity to this crowd. Oh, thank God for the mask. He barked a laugh and raised his bottle in salute. Took the words right out of my head, sister. Really? You too? Why do you think I'm hiding out here? I thought you had cleverly commandeered one of Paige's many stashes. She has stashes? Paige Miller and her husband Beckett were tonight's Halloween hosts. Drew still wasn't sure how he'd gotten roped into being here other than Beckett and TJ being best buds, and Natalie continually trying to set Drew up with any available female she happened upon. Each attempt ended in an epic fail because, duh, the women who hung out at these things were either hooked up with a pro hockey player or hoping to hook up with one. And while Drew played hockey, he was strictly beer league. These guys were the cream, the elite with bank accounts to match. His own bank balance didn't suck, but it had a few less commas. A pang of envy gave him a poke in the sternum, taunting him with a reminder of the big deal consulting job he'd thought was his until the douche canoe of an IT director had announced there was a new player the company was considering. He rubbed at the sharp jab, smoothing it into submission. Scrody let out a wry laugh, pulling Drew back to the deck now dusted in snow. Of course she does. Paige is the type of host who would be crushed if any guests had to go without for a nanosecond. The statement held absolutely no snark. I deemed this the only beer supply no one else would venture out here to tap. As it turns out, raiding it was my plan. Imagine my surprise at finding a banana slug guarding it. I'm happy to share my bounty. He waved his free hand toward the barrel and eyed her nearly empty bottle. In fact, you look like you could use a refill. He pointed at the icy beers. May I offer you one? Please. He twisted off the cap and handed her the frosty bottle, only to pull it back as she reached for it. Wait. If I'm going to share my treasure trove with you, I can't do Scrody. Do you go by any other names? Understandable, but we're not supposed to reveal our true identities until the end of the party. I don't much care if the name you use is real or fake, as long as it doesn't remind me of a dude's junk for Gulliver's Travels. Her laugh turned husky, striking a warm chord inside him. And using a cutesy name while talking to 6 feet of man member doesn't remind you? I have a confession. I've kept my eyes pointed elsewhere. Looking at the monstrosity was proving a struggle, so he'd kept his gaze glued to her delicate hands, which were way more expressive than her mask anyway. She let out a soft giggle. Okay, then. Call me Incognito. Nan for short. She extended her slender hand, and he engulfed it in his, surprised by how small and cold it was. Nice to meet you, Incognito. I'm Sammy. You're Sammy the banana slug. They clinked bottles and sipped. So, Nan, what are you in for? Excuse me? How did you get roped into coming to this mascot costume party? It occurred to him she might have come with a date, and surprisingly, disappointment thrummed in his chest. My boss would have fired me for skipping out. Really? No, not really, but she has this way of making you feel guilty for even thinking about letting her down, and she does it all so sweetly you don't know you're caught until it's too late. Her strategy is brilliantly evil, actually. So I take it she's here tonight. Mm-hmm. What did she think of your choice in mascots? The penis crown bent, ramming Drew's chest as Nan looked down at herself. He stumbled back a step, which saved him from getting knocked on his ass when she swiftly brought the thing up again. She fell over laughing. I think I can still hear her cackles in there. In fact, I couldn't hear myself think with all the cackling that came my way. I knew it would be funny, but sheesh, they're acting like a bunch of 12-year-olds. At least we're all supposed to keep our masks on until the big reveal at the end. Thank God for small favors. This girl had some kick. Normally, Drew went for milder women, the safe versions, but he was enjoying her spice. It had heat and brought flavor to his colorless world. She lifted the mask ever so slightly and took a long, pulsing pull, letting out a satisfied before slipping the mask back into place. So, what's your excuse? I'm here because my brother-in-law would have beat me to a pulp if I didn't show. Sounds like you didn't want to come either, huh? Nope. And no date, I take it? No date. I live in the state of singlehood. Hallelujah. Amen to that. He held out his bottle and she tapped it with a satisfying ring. Besides, I consider being here time on the clock. What does she mean by that? You shrugged it off, ridiculously relieved she was alone. A banana slug and a dick. There's something poetic there, though it may take me a while to figure it out. A crazy idea sprouted. Instead of shoving it aside like he normally would, he opted for reckless and ran with it. Want to blow this popsicle stand with me? You can be my companion crusader in a runaway caper? A grin she couldn't see split his face. I can't go out in public like this. She swept a hand down her torso. Aren't you wearing regular clothes underneath all that fabric? If you're talking about a teddy, then yeah. Silk, lace, and the thin straps holding them in place cavorted through his brain. Dirty pictures of this mystery woman flickered on his mind's movie screen, most of them featuring her in a provocative pose on a satin-covered bed in a peekaboo pink. Or maybe the skimpy bit was red, baby blue, midnight black? Maybe she wore nothing at all but smooth olive skin and mahogany hair cascading down her back. Or skin as pale as milk and white blonde hair curling on shoulders he could run his tongue over. His fertile imagination had fueled many fantasies this past year, keeping his right hand busy and his libido reined in so it didn't die from starvation. But right now that imagination was wreaking havoc inside his costume, stirring his cock's interest in its surroundings. Jesus, if she looked close enough, he might see the effect his runaway thoughts were having on his body. A boner tent in a banana suit. When it struck him that the she in this scenario was kitted out as a penis, he choked back a laugh. They were quite the pair. I have a t-shirt and some sweats in my car. They might be a little big on you, but they're clean. Easier to escape undetected if you're dressed like you're headed to a workout instead of the way you're dressed. God, did he sound as lame to her as he did to himself? Maybe this was the reason his sister was always trying to set him up. Even his mother got in on the act from time to time. What his two favorite women didn't understand was that he wasn't pathetically single. Being single was a choice. Life was so much easier that way. But this distraction in front of him, excellent for a single guy like him on so many levels. Nan tapped a finger against the side of her head, which happened to be close to the head. The entire scene was hilarity on steroids. Interesting offer, but let's put a pin in it for now, shall we? I'd like to know a little bit more about the banana slug I'm contemplating taking on as my prison break buddy. Good call. My parents always warned my sister not to trust just any old banana slug. A laugh rolled from deep in her belly, and the fact that he had caused it shot warm tingles through his bloodstream. He chuckled. Tell you what, hit me with 20 questions, no holds barred, so you can get to know me better. All right. Cats or dogs? Definitely dogs. Vanilla or cookies and cream? Mint chocolate chip. Thinking outside the box. I like that, Sammy. Beach or mountains? Mountains. That's why I live here. She paused to beat. Women, men, both, or none of the above? He didn't hesitate. Women, always. Hockey or baseball? No contest, hockey. Favorite season? Fall. Missionary or reverse cowgirl? Her voice was suddenly breathy, sultry, and it made his dick go from semi to full mast in a nanosecond. You just got more interesting. Clever, but that doesn't answer my question, she said in a school teacher voice. Your go-to position? All of the above and all variations. I'm flexible that way. Phew, it's getting hot out here. Snowflakes were turning to virtual bursts of steam as they hit the atmosphere, sizzling between them. Keep going. You have 11 more questions by my count. And he couldn't wait to hear every single one. That would be 12 since 2 of those questions were on the same subject, but honestly, you had me at dogs. Let me take one last sip of my beer and let's scoot. Oh, wow. Did Drewbert just score one? He didn't school his surprise. You don't want to stick around and see if you win the prize? Nuh-uh. Let him keep their prize. They can give it to the devil dragging his fat tail and prancing around with his pitchfork in there. He's the host anyway, unless you want to see if you can win. Pretty sure I just did. No, I'm good. Let's go.